So once upon a time, long, long ago, there lived a merchant, and he lived with his wife and his 7 daughters. One day he called his eldest daughter and asked her, "Tell me, on whose fortune do you make your living?" The eldest daughter replied, Father, I make my living on your fortune." The merchant was happy. He called his second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth daughters, and all of them replied the same: "Father, we make our living on your fortune." He called his youngest daughter, the little one, the seventh one. She said, "Father, I make my living on my own fortune." Now, this merchant was egoistic, right? He was a successful man, and so he turned out he was an egoist. He got very angry and said, "Oh, you think you make your living on your own fortune? So let me see how you do if you're left to fend, if you fare alone, how you fare alone, let me find out." And he banished her from his home. He told his palki bearers to take this arrogant girl and leave her right in the dense forest. Let her rot there and let me see how she fares. So the daughter cried a lot, the mother cried a lot, but the merchant did not pay any heed. So the palki bearers, they took the girl inside the palki and they went, hun hunare, hun huna, and they had not gone 100 yards from the city limits when they found this old nurse, there was this old nurse who used to take care of this youngest child. She came running to the palki and she said that, "I too want to accompany my child." The palki bearer said, "No, but we must rush. How can you keep pace with us? You can't join us possibly." But she was adamant. She was an old, decrepit, and imbecile woman, and she was very fond of the child. She said, "I want to go, and they then finally felt pity on her and took her onto the palki and went out of the city limits. They entered the forest in the afternoon and they kept walking, hun hunare, hun huna, hun hunare, hun huna. They stopped only at sundown. It was a dense forest, almost interminable forest. You could not hear anything other than the crickets sing at that hour of the day. And they left the the youngest daughter, and the old woman under a big old tree, at the trunk of that old tree. They left the two and they came back. Now these two were crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. Two poor women. One was old, one was young. They were crying. Then the tree spoke to these two women. Trees and birds and animals and flowers and leaves used to speak to us long back when we used to be kind to them. But ever since we had started becoming selfish, they had stopped talking to us. So now we don't understand what they say, but during then we could understand. So the tree spoke to these good women. We can see that you're very sad, that you're very tired, you're sad. Don't worry, you have to keep yourself safe, and we shall talk tomorrow morning. What you do is that I'm opening up my trunk and both of you step inside and I'll close the trunk again. Why? Because there are lots of wild beasts in the jungle when night falls and they will come chasing for you. So before wasting any time, and you could already hear the roar of the tiger at a distance, you come inside my trunk and I'll keep you safe. So saying, the trunk opened and the two leapt inside the trunk, very feared. They were very afraid, very fearful. And the trunk closed, and then night fell, and out came the fierce tiger, the wild boar, the musty elephant, the thick-skinned rhinoceros, the horned buffalo. They all came, and they could just get the smell of blood, of human blood, and they attacked the tree. They came dashing against the tree. They broke all the branches. They pierced their horns into the tree. They scratched the bark. The young girl, she said, "Oh, good mother, you have been so kind on us, and we are so thankful to you." There was a connection issue, I'm sorry. You have been so kind and we are thankful to you. Let me do something for you because you're all bruised up. So saying, she went into the to the nearby embankment. There was a tank, and from the tank she got some mud. Mud she brought and uh, just applied it over the holes on the trunks, over the scratched areas, properly applied the mud, and the tree felt a little better. The tree said, "Okay, now I'm feeling a little better, and I thank you for doing this to me, but I can see that both of you are very hungry. So do something, give some koris." Old nurse, send her to the city outside the city, this forest limit, and get her to buy some koi. Okay, and they could not find any money with them because they were not carrying any. But before leaving, what she had done was that she had secretly, this little girl, she workbox. That workbox had some needles and some threads. And there she found that she had some 5 or 6 cowries. Now, cowries would be shell money, you know, during long, long back, shells were used as means of purchase or buying stuff from people. They would be white in color, but there would be other colors of shell as well. So we would call them. So she had some 5 or 6 cowries, and she sent the old woman with the cowries to the nearby city. The old woman went there, and she went from one door of from one confectioner to the next to the third, and she managed to get some koi. Now koi would be, you know, it would be rice actually, fried fried paddy. So after she got the koi with her, the tree asked, "Okay, now you leave more than half aside, more than half of this aside. Eat a little, both of you, and then what you can do is that the rest of it you spread on that embankment near the tank." Now they did not know why the tree asked like this, but they did her bidding anyway. And the whole day went by like this, and they were sad, etc., etc. Evening fell, and the two again went inside the trunk in the evening. Again night fell, and the animals again charged, again came, and again they were safely housed inside. But they did not know what was happening outside. There were hundreds of peacocks with, you know, enchanting plumes that came to the embankment, to the tank, near the tank. They fed on the koi, and while they were struggling with one another, struggling against each other to feed on the koi, their beautiful plumes, they fell apart from their bodies. You know, hundreds of plumes, and you would know some 500s or 600s of, you know, plumes, beautiful plumes were scattered all over the embankment, which they found out the next morning. And it's asked the tree, "So what do we do with these plumes?" The tree said, "Well, you can use your mind, you can use your brain, and do whatever you want to." Now this young little girl, we know that she was a brave girl, right? She made a fan, a beautiful fan. She made a couple of fans, hat pakha, you know, with those plumes. And again, the both of them now, the old woman and the old nurse and this young girl, they went to the nearby city and sold the plumes and sold the fans out of those plumes. Quite some money. Okay, they came back happy with more koi. So this ritual went on for a few months, and lo and behold, I mean, after a few months, both of them had gotten very rich, quite rich. They were rich enough to, you know, build a little palace outside the forest limit. Built a little palace outside the forest limit, employing a lot of men. They built a little palace, and they were living there. Okay. In the meantime, what had happened with this merchant, I mean the little girl's father and his wife and their 6 daughters, was that the goddess of wealth, Lakshmi, had been very angry with them, and she moved away from them. So their luck fell, and their entire business went kaput. And they had fallen on very bad times. During around this time, they were looking for work outside. The merchant and his wife, they were looking for work outside, so that from they could earn something, and with that they could feed themselves and the 6 daughters. They were around this time, that girl and the old nurse were planning to make a garden. They were planning to build a garden and a tank, and a small water tank for in their palace. So they had employed a lot of men. But by the time this merchant and his wife, they thought of going to this city because they had heard of a new palace being built there, and there were two weird women that they had heard of, and they thought that we could go there and do some work at the tank and get some money. By the time they went there, the tank was already built. It was just, the job was done. Now one day, when they went there, this girl was at the window of a palace looking down at the finishing job that the laborers were doing, and there she saw her parents in tattered rags, coming to look for work. And she started weeping, she started crying. Then she told her servant, please go and fetch that man there and that woman there in tattered rags. Now, when the servants, they went to fetch this father, this merchant, and his wife, they were very afraid because during those days, once a thing was going to be inaugurated, there would be human sacrifice. So they literally thought that probably now our life is done, that we are going to be sacrificed for this thing to be inaugurated. What was their surprise when they came into the palace and they were giving new clothes, and then out came their youngest daughter, like a little rich princess she was. And then she narrated all her stories to her entire story to her parents, and started weeping on their shoulder. And then the merchant realized that yes, she really meant when she said that I make my living on my own fortune. So very happy, he went back, but not before this youngest daughter had given him a lot of wealth to set up his business again. So this younger daughter does things on her own, builds up a palace, and then she contributes to her failing father and sets up his business as well. So once he has gone back to the city, but Shobur, wait, the story is not over yet. So once he goes back to the city and had set up his business and is doing well, one day he thinks of going to far off lands to business on a ship. Okay, but the ship would not move from the port, from the dock. The ship is not moving in the water. He was wondering why, when suddenly it occurred to him that, oh my God, I have asked all my 6 daughters what they want me to bring for them, but I haven't asked my youngest daughter what she wants from me, the one who had got me rich. So he felt very ashamed and that he had forgotten about her, and he sent his messenger to the palace, to that youngest daughter. When the messenger came there, the youngest daughter was doing some work, she was doing some work, and she told him that, and the messenger asked her that, little princess, what do you want your father to bring for you from his journey, from his voyage? The youngest the youngest daughter said, Shobur, meaning, wait, I'm coming to answer you. What this messenger thought, was that she was asking him to bring Shobur. She was asking him to bring Shobur for her. He went and told the merchant that that your daughter wants you to bring back Shobur for her. The merchant said, okay, fine. And as soon as this information was passed to the merchant on the ship itself started moving on the water. The ship itself started moving on the water, and they set sail. So the merchant went to various lands and did a lot of purchasing and did a lot of good business and got everything for his other 6 daughters that they wanted him to get. But nowhere he could get Shobur. He went from one port to the other, from one continent to the next. Nowhere he could get Shobur. He looked for Shobur everywhere. Where is Shobur? Where is Shobur? Finally, the last port before which he would be homeward bound, he got mad and he started shouting, Kothai Shobur pawa jabe? Shobur, please someone get me Shobur. It so happened that the prince of that country, he was in the marketplace to look around and see what is happening in the city. So he came across this businessman, this merchant, who was shouting for Shobur, Shobur, Shobur. He took him to his home, to his capital, to his palace, and smiled and said that I have Shobur for you. And the merchant said, where is it, sir? Then the prince gave him a little gift box, which he opened and found that there was a beautiful fan with again a hand fan with a beautiful mirror in the center of the fan. He gave it to the merchant and said, this is your Shobur, take it back. So the merchant comes back to his place and sends the gift box to the daughter, to the youngest daughter. The youngest daughter thought it was just another gift box, and she just kept it there because she had not really asked for anything. Before that, the messenger had left, remember? But after a few days, she thought, what is there? Let me check. And when she opened the box, she found the fan. She opened the fan, she looked at herself in the mirror on the fan, and she waved it. And lo and behold, immediately the prince comes there from that land of Shobur. And the princess is, and this young girl is very surprised. Who are you? And what are you doing here? And how did you come here? Then the prince narrated to her the entire story of his father and how they met and all the circumstances. The daughter came to know that, and she was very happy. And needless to say that the prince stayed back at the palace for a while, and both of them fell in love with each other, and they decided to marry. Shobur, wait. The story is not over yet. And it's not over yet. The prince goes back to his kingdom once again and announces to his parents that I have met the girl of... and I believe this was the first instance of love marriage in Bengal, you know, that you guys meet and fall in love with each other. Probably this was the first instance. That is an aside. So he told his parents that I have fallen in love with a girl and I want to marry her. So all those mails were exchanged and everything happened, and the day of marriage came. But the young girl said that I want to marry in my own palace, not anywhere else. So her father and mother and the 6 daughters, 6 sisters, they went there. The king and the queen from that country, they came there, and the marriage took place and everything, and it was all a very happy thing. But it was not an ending, because there was death in the marriage bed. You know what happened? When the prince went into the Bashur Ghar, you know, where the bride and the bridegroom would be consummating their marriage, there these 6 sisters of this youngest child, the 6 sisters, out of jealousy, out of envy, out of spite, out of hatred, out of anger, they had broken lots of glass bottles. They had made powder out of that and laid on the bed, on the bridal bed, you know. When the prince went and fell into the bed, he went and slept on the bed. Within 2 minutes, he had excruciating pain throughout his body, because all those pieces had entered each and every pore of his system, of his body, and he was in total pain. He was almost dying. The prince's men, they got very nervous. They immediately took him away to their own kingdom that very night. And the merchant and his daughters and wife, they were all sad, and they also came back to their own city. This young princess, I'll call her the princess now, this young princess and her old nurse were again left very sad, very sad. When is this story going to end? When is this sad fate going to end? They did not know. The princess said, whatever it is, he is my husband, and I'm going to rescue him, and I will bring him back to my own life. Saying this, she she dressed up as a shonnashi, as a hermit, and set up as a boy, you know, as a hermit, and taking a dagger, she went out of the city and entered the forest, because the kingdom lay on the other side of the forest, probably. Walking, she got very tired, and she came and stood near a tree, stood under a tree, a huge tree, when suddenly she heard 2 baby birds crying, snake. She could understand their language. Immediately next to her, she saw that there was this huge snake which was, you know, with its fangs out. It was trying to climb up the tree for those 2 little birds, 2 baby birds. She immediately took out her dagger and cut the snake into 2 pieces. Now these 2 baby birds happened to be the children of Vihangama and Vihangami. Vihangama and Vihangami would be Bangoma and Bangumi in Bangla. Now these Bangoma and Bangumi were divine birds, you know, and they understood a lot of things. They could foresee the future. They could tell of the past. They knew how to do good for humankind, you know. They were very good birds. Now these 2 baby birds belonged to that Bihangama and Bihangami, and when they returned to the nest, the parents, the children told them how this little Shonnashi down there, he saved their life. Now the Bihangami, the Bangomi told the Bangoma that we should do something for our little friend because he has saved our our children. The Bangoma said that no, we are not going to do anything for him, but we are going to do a lot of things for her, because this is not a him, this is a her in disguise as a him. Then he narrated the story of this princess to his wife and said that I think I'm going to take her to that kingdom of the prince because he's really on his deathbed. And the only way to cure that illness, you know how, Bihangama? That is, there is our dried, there is a dung, dried, hardened dung that is lying at the trunk of the tree. That has to be ground to pieces, and 7 jars of milk and 7 jars of water are to be poured on the prince, and then with a brush this dried potion has to be applied on the prince's body, and he would be fine. The Bangomi said that you immediately rush with this girl and please save the husband. So the Bangoma then told the girl that I am here to help you, let me take you to your prince. But only thing he told the little princess that you can't carry back any gifts, no gifts, okay? She said, okay, fine. And so they flew at the speed of lightning from that forest to the capital of that kingdom where the prince was there. There she alighted from the Bangoma, went to the palace, met the king, and told that he has the potion. He has the potion to cure the prince. But the king saw that this was a child of a Shonnashi. He was only probably 17 or 18, and he was just pretending. But the courtiers requested the king to give it a chance anyway, because the prince was on his deathbed and nothing was working. Because they had tried the whole night, everyone came in from all nearby kingdoms and nothing could be done to the prince. So why not try this fellow out? And you know what happened? That he was bathed, that the prince was bathed by this Shonnashi with 7 jars of milk, 7 jars of water. Then with a brush, this potion was applied. The hardened, dried dung of this Bangomi was applied on his body. And then again he was washed with another 7 jars of milk and 7 jars of water. And within the within a fraction of a second, he was fine. He was totally fit and fine. The king was thoroughly relieved and told this Shonnashi, you can take as many hire jawarat, joto ja chai tomar, you just take all the wealth of this kingdom with you. He was my only child that you saved. The Shonnashi said, no, I don't want anything, Your Highness. I just need a ring from your boy's finger. And he was immediately given that, a ring from the prince's finger. And the Shonnashi rushed to the Bangoma, got on top of the Bangoma and flew there. And they flew back to the forest. After coming to the forest, they alighted there. The princess, she thanked the Bangoma and Bangomi and fed a little koi to the 2 baby birds and went back to her city. There she came and she bathed and she dressed up and she took out that magical fan with the mirror and waved it. And the prince was there in a jiffy. And the prince asked her that, how did you know that I was fine? And how did you know that I would be coming? Because you knew, that's why you waved the fan. The Shonnashi, the princess did not say anything. She just took out that ring that was with her and she showed it to the prince. The prince understood everything, gave her a hug, and they were very happy. The prince took his wife to his kingdom, met with his parents. They stayed there for a couple of days, and then on the daughter's request, on the princess's request, both of them came back to her own palace, because she wanted to live there, because that was her own thing. And she said that I make my living from my own fortune, and together we will make our living from our own fortune, not from the fortune of our parents or from other people. It has to be us. So saying, both of them lived happily ever after, had a lot of children, out of which a lot of were girls, and they had grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and they lived happily ever after.